Whatever you hear today is going to be true. I want to tell you a story about the time that I jammed with Hendrix. It was 1969, and I had a band at the time. It was called Blue Morning, and we had the same people that traveled with me for the next 24 years. That was the beginning of our band, which eventually became Pasadena Ghetto Orchestra, ultimately American Gypsy. It's hard to believe that it was so long ago, but 1970, but I remember it like it was yesterday. There's a club on Sunset Boulevard called the Experience Club. It was owned by a guy named Marshall Brevitz. We'd come up and pretty much beg him in the afternoons at lunchtime to let us play at his club. And the club was called the Experience. It was rumored that Jimi Hendrix had a part ownership in the club. We didn't know that was like a urban legend, but it was called the Experience, and so we, I guess, assumed that Jimmy was part of the business plan. But eventually, after badgering him, we finally convinced him that our band was strong enough to play. And he said we could play, but under one condition, and that is that we let the bands that were going to play that night also use our equipment. Of course, we agreed, and we got a chance to play with Golden Earring. That was a Dutch band. Another band called the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. It was a San Francisco band because at the time San Francisco was kind of like the mecca of where all these new bands were being born. We came down, did a sound check. They set up our equipment. We played, and our band was pretty hot. We were kind of on the edge of jazz funk at the time, so it was a little bit of a new thing. And of course, I had a Fender Rhodes. It was an old Fender Rhodes, one of the first with a metal flake silver top, and it was kind of looked down upon to play electric piano at the time because Hammond organ was the thing. So we played, and we did a pretty good job. We also had a really great horn player. He was like the kingpin in our band. He was a bit like Miles Davis to us, and we got offered a record deal by Al Schmidt. There's a link in the description if you want to look up Al Schmidt stuff. Ultimately, we ended up turning down the deal because Jack, our horn player, he was skeptical about the publishing and this and that. That's one of the reasons why we left LA and came to Europe. Okay, long story short, back to the Experience Club. We played, we killed them, and then Golden Earring came on next, played, and then Bonzo Dog Doodah Band, which was kind of a freak band. I hung around, but our bass player, he decided that he would go home. And the drummer ultimately left. But at the time, there were a lot of major artists would come to these small clubs in the after hours, like Prince. Hendrix used to do basically the same thing. So I stayed because I was sure that he was going to show up. I thought maybe. And I remember going outside about 1 o'clock in the morning. It was California, so it's still a nice warm night, standing outside, hanging out. And sure enough, this limousine pulls up, door opens up, 3 or 4 girls, they exited the vehicle. And then Hendrix came out and followed them. And they just went straight into the club. I remember there was no time to do anything. When he went in, they went straight back to the back and sat down. And, I thought, well, he's going to play out. And I went back inside, stood, in a strategic position so I could see the stage. The place was pretty much packed. So I was standing there and everybody was kind of waiting in anticipation. There was no music playing and the bands had finished, and Hendrix just got up, walked straight through the crowd, hit the stage. I remember he had a white Strat, turned around, plugged it in, and then turned around to the audience and just started blasting. And I was thinking to myself, oh man, it's like, the sound's coming. And the only thing I could think of was that our stuff was on stage. He was playing through one of our amps, and my piano was just to the left of him. I was paralyzed, because Hendrix was on stage. I was watching, but my feet wouldn't move, and I was thinking, go, I said, go. But my legs were just like, no, dude, you ain't going up there. That's crazy. That's Hendrix, But when I saw those guys move that Hammond organ towards the rows, I thought to myself, no, and I made a beeline to the stage, and I said, no, don't touch that. Put that, don't move my piano. That's my shit. But I was on stage at the time, Hendrix was playing, I'm on stage, and I thought, I'm so close to my piano, dude, sit down, because otherwise they're gonna move it. So I sat down, and I was sitting there, and then I realized, yep, sweet, he's in E, and I started jamming. So, I said, I jammed with Hendrix. So we were working, we were playing. And it's kind of blues, kind of blues funk thing, and then a bass player jumped on stage and starts playing. So there was the three of us playing. I'm on Fender Rhodes, Hendrix is playing guitar, and this bass player. And then this drummer jumps on stage. Now, don't ask me where this guy came from, but wherever he came from, I can remember clearly when he jumped on stage, he kind of bammed into the cymbals and just, and it wasn't playing no rhythm and at all. And so, we were thinking, well, is this guy doing some kind of free jazz thing? Or it became clear in a few seconds that this guy was not really a drummer. He was just high, and he was really high. And Hendrix was turning around to him going like, come on. And he just wasn't getting it. We were playing for about another minute, and then it was impossible to do anything because this dude had gone crazy on the drums. The irony is this, that because I said I was stage left, I could look to the other side of the stage. So on the other side of the stage, I saw two security guys. By this time, people had started gathering, and I could see our drummer, Richard, had come back, and he was trying to break through these security guards to get to his drums, and they wouldn't let him go. And he's like, those are my fucking drums, let me go. And Hendrix was still playing, and they wouldn't let him through. And so Hendrix just kind of pulled the plug, and that was it. So to this day, if you talk to Richard, our drummer, or Joe, our bass player, we would have been able to hit the stage together. And the big joke in our band for 25 years was, had we done that, we would possibly have been Hendrix's new band. Shortly after that, he did the New Year's Eve thing at Fillmore East, with Buddy Miles and Billy Cox. And we thought he should have a black band. That was the deal. But I jammed with Hendrix.